At 46, Craig Melvin is not known for theatrics. He is steady, thoughtful, and careful with his words, especially when they involve someone he has worked beside for years. So when stories began circulating that he had spoken privately about Savannah Guthrie and her relationship with her mother Nancy, it immediately drew attention. But let's ground this in what we actually know. There has been no confirmed recording, no official statement, no verified transcript. What appears to have happened is far more human and far less sensational. A colleague, worried about a friend, spoke candidly in a small setting. In moments of crisis, private reflections can take on a life of their own once they travel beyond the room. Before we reshape how we see anyone's life, it's important to separate emotion from verified fact. The weight of a missing parent, the disappearance of an elderly parent would shake anyone. When that parent is connected to a nationally recognized journalist, the scrutiny multiplies. Savannah has been standing in front of cameras delivering measured updates while her family endures uncertainty. Viewers have commented on her composure, some admiring it, others questioning it. But composure on air is not unusual for someone who has spent decades in broadcast journalism. Anchors are trained to regulate tone, posture, and pace, even when covering devastating stories. If Craig expressed concern that she appears tightly controlled, that concern likely reflects empathy rather than revelation. Public calm does not equal private peace. It often means someone is using the only tools they know to stay upright. Interpreting strength carefully. One idea gaining traction is that Savannah's steadiness reflects a lifelong need to meet high expectations set by her mother. That interpretation may feel compelling, but it remains speculative unless Savannah herself confirms it. Many high-achieving adults credit their parents for instilling discipline and resilience. That influence can be both loving and demanding without being harmful. To suggest a deeply psychological dynamic based on secondhand accounts risks oversimplifying a private bond. Craig, if he spoke about their relationship, likely did so from the vantage point of friendship, not as a clinical analyst. Observing that someone pushes themselves hard does not automatically mean they are trapped in conditional love. Sometimes it simply means they are deeply wired for responsibility. The Today Show persona versus the person on Today. Savannah has built a reputation for clarity and composure. That professionalism did not emerge overnight. It reflects years of courtroom training, live reporting, and navigating unpredictable broadcast environments. When she says, "We will pay," in a steady voice, that delivery may strike some as unusually controlled. But journalists often default to precision during crisis because precision reduces chaos. It does not necessarily signal emotional suppression. Craig, having shared countless mornings beside her, would recognize that steadiness as part of her professional reflex. Concern for how much she is carrying is understandable. Reframing that reflex as evidence of emotional imprisonment, however, crosses into interpretation rather than confirmed truth. Parenting patterns and generational shifts. Another thread suggests Savannah parents differently than she was parented, offering more visible emotional flexibility to her own children. That observation, even if accurate, does not imply a broken past. Parenting evolves with culture, research, and personal reflection. Many adults consciously expand emotional language with their children without rejecting their own upbringing. If Craig has seen Savannah embrace softness with her daughters, that likely speaks to growth, not correction. It is possible to admire a parent and still choose a different style. Families are rarely rigid narratives of damage and repair. They are layered, adaptive, and influenced by time. The risk of over-narrating grief. When someone well-known faces a personal crisis, audiences search for deeper meaning. We analyze tone, timing, phrasing. Silence becomes symbolic. Structure becomes coded. But sometimes silence is simply coordination with investigators. Sometimes structure is simply discipline. Turning every measured sentence into psychological evidence can distort reality. Craig's reflections, if shared, likely aim to humanize Savannah, not to redefine her identity. He may have wanted people to stop questioning why she isn't visibly collapsing. That impulse comes from compassion. Yet compassion does not require constructing a lifelong emotional thesis. It requires recognizing that public figures deserve private space to feel. Friendship in the middle of fear. There is something deeply relatable about a colleague watching someone they care about shoulder enormous pressure. Craig has sat beside Savannah through breaking news and personal milestones. He would notice subtle shifts in energy, posture, or voice. Expressing that she looks tired, stretched, or burdened is not scandalous. It is what friends do. But even close colleagues see only part of someone's interior world. They witness workday fragments, not midnight fears or private prayers. That distinction matters. Concern is credible. Definitive conclusions about someone's psychological wiring are not. Love and expectation can coexist. It is tempting to frame parental influence as either unconditional warmth or relentless pressure. Real life is rarely that binary. A parent can hold high expectations and deep love simultaneously. Children can internalize ambition as affirmation rather than threat. Without Savannah publicly describing her childhood in those terms, we should resist filling in emotional blanks. If Craig spoke about love and expectation being intertwined, that may reflect his observation, not a final diagnosis. Relationships between mothers and daughters, especially across decades, are textured and evolving. They cannot be fully understood from outside the family. What we actually know. What we know is this: an 84-year-old woman is missing, and her daughter is waiting for answers. We know Savannah has issued controlled, deliberate public messages. We know colleagues appear concerned for her well-being. We do not know the exact content of any private conversation. We do not know the full architecture of her childhood. And we do not know how this story will end. Responsible storytelling leaves room for uncertainty instead of filling it with emotionally satisfying but unverified conclusions. Returning to the human core. At its heart, this moment is not about psychological exposés or dramatic revelations. It is about a family enduring fear. If Craig Melvin chose to speak candidly in a small circle, it was likely because he sees a friend carrying immense weight. That is not betrayal. It is care. Savannah's composure may reflect professionalism, upbringing, personality, or some combination of all three. But the most grounded response from the rest of us is not analysis, it is empathy. She does not need to cry on camera to prove devotion. She does not need to unravel publicly to validate grief. Sometimes strength is simply the form pain takes when someone is still trying to function. Until verified facts replace speculation, compassion remains the clearest lens.